Commander Lara Amani stood at the head of the briefing room's holotable, the dim blue glow casting sharp shadows across the faces of her task force officers. The USS Vanguard's command deck hummed faintly behind the reinforced bulkheads, a reminder of the void pressing in from all sides. She scanned the room. Captain Reyes from engineering, sharp-eyed and pragmatic, Lieutenant Voss, her tactical chief, arms crossed like he was already bracing for bad news, and Dr. Kale Nureyev, the ethicist, perched on the edge of his seat, with that perpetual furrow in his brow, as if the galaxy's weight sat solely on his shoulders. "We've got Keth raiders probing the outer colonies again," Lara said, her voice steady, cutting through the low murmur. She tapped the holotable, and a three-dimensional map flickered to life, red blips marking the incursions along the neutral zone, human settlements marked in green, fragile dots against the sprawl. 3 freighters hit in the last cycle. No fatalities, but they're testing us. Our response? Limited intervention. We push them back to their borders, disable their ships, capture what we can. No strikes on civilian worlds. We hold the line without crossing it. Reyes leaned forward, her fingers drumming the table's edge. "Ma'am, their raiders are fast, built for hit and run. Disabling means getting in close. Our interceptors can match speed, but one wrong burst from their plasma lances, and we're nursing hull breaches." Lara nodded, meeting her gaze. "That's why we're emphasizing precision. Graduated response. Warn first, jam their comms, then targeted EMP bursts. We show strength without escalation." She glanced at Voss. "Tactics? Feasible," Voss replied, though his tone carried the grit of doubt. "But the Keth don't play by halves. Last raid, they vented a colony's atmo just to cover their retreat. If we hold back, they might read it as fear." Kale cleared his throat, his voice measured but insistent. "Which is exactly why restraint is our edge. The Coalition's doctrine isn't weakness, it's a signal. We prove we're not the monsters they paint us as." He stood, pulling up a secondary overlay, rules of engagement scrolling in stark text. "I've refined the protocols. Priority on disabling shots, aim for engines and weapons arrays, capture overkill, non-lethal gas for boardings where possible, no orbital strikes unless directly threatened." The room stirred. Voss's jaw tightened. "Doctor, with respect, we've got Marines like Ezra Imani's squad out there. Recent casualties from that ambush on Epsilon. 12 dead because the Keth didn't hesitate. You want them suiting up for capture when the other side's slitting throats?" Kale didn't flinch. "I want them coming home. These rules save lives on both sides. The Keth Empire thrives on total war. We break that cycle by not mirroring it." Lara watched the exchange, her own pulse steady, but her mind turning over the familiar ache. Ezra was out there now, leading one of those boarding teams. Her brother, all fire and ideals, but the war had a way of grinding those down. She raised a hand. "The rules stand. We execute as briefed. Dismissed." As the officers filed out, Kale lingered, his eyes searching hers. "You believe this, Lara? Or are you just holding the line for the Coalition brass?" She met his stare, the weight of command settling heavier. "I built my career on it. If we abandon restraint now, what's left of us?" Ezra Imani gripped the handrail as his drop pod shuddered through the void, the Keth Raider's hull looming in the viewport like a jagged scar against the stars. Alarms blared in his helmet, syncing with his squad's vitals. 6 Marines, hearts pounding in unison. "Lock and load," he barked over the comm. "Breach in 10. Remember ROE. Disable, capture, no executions." Private Hale snorted, her voice crackling. "RO. After what they did to Jenkins' platoon, those bastards glassed a HAB module. Kids inside. I'm ventilating the first one who twitches." Ezra's jaw clenched under his visor. He could picture Hale's face, twisted with the raw edge of grief. Jenkins had been her squad lead before the transfer. Now it was just another ghost. "Stow it, Hale. We follow orders or we become them. Breach!" The pod latched with a metallic screech, cutters slicing through the Raider's outer plating. Atmosphere vented in a hiss, and they poured in, boots magnetizing to the deck, rifles sweeping the dim corridors lit by pulsing emergency strips. Keth architecture was all sharp angles and bioluminescent veins, alien and unforgiving. Ezra took point, his HUD painting targets, 3 crew scrambling for a bulkhead. "Drop weapons!" he shouted, amplified through the translator. The Keth froze, tall, scaled figures in pressure suits, their multi-jointed hands hovering over sidearms. One lunged, and Voss's training kicked in. Ezra fired a stun round, dropping the leader in a twitching heap. The rest surrendered, claws raised, eyes wide with what Ezra's implants read as shock. His squad fanned out, securing them with zip cuffs, but Hale lingered over the stunned Keth, rifle hovering too close. "They didn't give Jenkins a chance," she muttered. Ezra stepped between them, voice low. "And we won't give them the excuse to paint us as butchers. Secure the bridge. Move." By the time they extracted, the raider was a drifting hulk, engines fried, crew in coalition custody. Ezra felt the squad's resentment like static on the comm, quiet grumbles about playing nice while they sharpened knives. But as the pod rocketed back to the Vanguard, he pushed it down. Lara's way, prove it works. Back aboard, Lara oversaw the processing in the brig, the air thick with the tang of recycled oxygen and alien sweat. The captured signals officer, Errol Tesh, according to the manifest, was isolated in an interrogation suite. No restraints beyond a neural suppressor to dull any implants. Humane protocols, water, medical scan, no hoods or beatings. Lara watched through the one-way viewport as Kale entered, flanked by a linguist drone. Errol sat hunched, scales dulled from stress, forearms folded defensively. Their eyes, compound, flickering, darted to Kyle. "You humans, this is your mercy, parading it like a trophy?" Kale settled across the table, voice calm. "It's protocol. We want information, not broken spirits. Tell us about the raids. Who's directing them?" Errol's mandibles clicked, a sound the translator rendered as bitter laughter. "Directing? It's doctrine. The Strategos Varric Thal, he sees your mercy as code for fear. Every time you spare a ship, a crew, it tells him you're soft, vulnerable. He probes deeper because you let him." Lara's hand tightened on the viewport frame. Varric, the name surfaced in every intel brief, a ghost architect of the Dominion's expansions, cold as vacuum. Kale pressed gently, "And if we hit harder, what then?" "Then you become us," Errol said, voice dropping. "Total war, no borders, no mercy. I've seen purges, my own kin executed for hesitation. Your restraint, it's a beacon to some of us, but to Varric, it's an invitation." Kale glanced at the recorder, then back. "Help us understand. Defect. We can protect you." Errol's gaze hardened, a flicker of desperation beneath. "Protect? Until I'm expendable. But ask yourself, how long before your own doubt it?" Lara turned away as the session wrapped, Errol's words echoing. Battlefield, weakness. She shoved it down. Doubt was a luxury they couldn't afford. Aboard the Keth command cruiser Shadowspine, Strategos Varric Thal replayed the engagement footage. In the dim glow of his strategy chamber, hollow projections danced, the human interceptors weaving through debris, precise bursts crippling his raider without a single kill shot. The boarding, Marines sparing the crew, even as reports confirmed human casualties from prior strikes. Varric's tendrils flexed, a rare sign of intrigue. Humans, ingenious, adaptive, yet chained by their ethics. He paused the feed on the signals officer's capture, Errol Tesh, a mid-rank asset, now in enemy hands. Replaceable, admirable, he murmured to his aide. A silent shadow in the corner. They disable, capture, low losses on both sides, but look, their formation gaps, hesitation in the kill window. He expanded the map, tracing vectors. We exploit this, stage deeper incursions, feint toward a civilian fringe world, draw their task force in, force the choice, break rules to save it or watch it burn. The aide inclined its head. And if they hold? Varric's eyes gleamed. Then they shatter. Mercy is error. History corrects it. Coalition High Command's broadcast, hit the Vanguard's comms like a morale booster. Admiral Chen's face stern but approving on every screen. Operation Threshold exemplifies our commitment to ethical warfare. 0 civilian casualties, multiple captures, raiders repelled. Commander Imani's task force sets the standard. Restraint as strength. In the mess hall, cheers were sparse. Ezra sat with his squad, picking at ration packs, the praise ringing hollow. Hale stabbed her fork into synth protein. Standard. We risked our asses zip-tying those lizards while they laugh at us. Next time, one of us doesn't come back because we set the standard. Voss, nursing a bulb of coffee nearby, grunted agreement. Brass loves the optics. Frontline, we're the ones bleeding for it. Ezra stayed quiet, the words twisting in his gut. Lara's ideals. His too, once. But Hale's anger mirrored his own buried doubt. What if Mercy just painted targets on their backs? Lara caught the undercurrent in her evening rounds, the quiet grumbles filtering through bulkheads. In her quarters, she sealed the door, the stars streaking past the viewport like accusations. Kale's protocols, Errol's warning. Ezra's squad, all pulling at the doctrine she'd staked her life on. She activated her console, drafting the next order. All ships, in forthcoming encounters, hold heavy weapons batteries, EMP and precision fire only. We proved them wrong. The transmission sent, she leaned back, the weight pressing. Prove it before it costs everything. Alarms shattered the calm hours later. Tactical pinged, multiple Keth signatures coordinated, vectoring straight for the colony fringe. Varick's strike, bold, deep civilian worlds in the crosshairs. Lara bolted for the bridge, heart slamming. Hold the line or break it. The choice loomed, the void waiting to swallow them whole. Lara's boots hit the bridge deck with a metallic thud, the hum of the CIC enveloping her like a second skin. Red emergency lights pulsed across consoles and casting jagged shadows on the faces of her crew. Captain Reyes glanced up from the holotank, his jaw tight, eyes flicking to her without a word. She dropped into the command chair, straps snapping into place as the tactical overlay bloomed before her. Dozens of Keth signatures swarming the mining outpost on the colony's edge, their vectors a deliberate arc toward the heart of Epsilon Drift. "Status," she said, voice cutting through the chatter. "Faint confirmed," Reyes reported, his fingers dancing over the interface. "They're probing the outpost's defenses. Light raiders, nothing heavy. But it's pulling our pickets in. Sensors show ambush signatures building in the debris field. 3 clicks out. They're targeting our non-lethal arrays, EM pulse emitters, gravitic shields. Want to neuter our restraint protocols before we can deploy." Lara's gut twisted. Varick's handiwork, no doubt. The Keth architect had a surgeon's precision for these traps, always one step ahead, betting on her rules to tie her hands. The outpost was a skeleton crew of miners, vital for the colony's rare isotopes, but expendable in the grand calculus if it meant drawing blood. She leaned forward, tracing the projected paths. "Helm, evasive pattern Delta 7. Bring us about to flank their approach vector. Weapons stand by on precision strikes. Target engines only, no hull breaches." The bridge thrummed with activity, officers relaying orders in clipped bursts. Lara's mind raced through the graduated response matrix Kale had drilled into every op. Assess threat, minimize escalation, protect non-coms. But the Void didn't care about doctrines. It rewarded the bold, the merciless. She pushed the thought down, focusing on the holotank as her fleet, 3 frigates and the battered cruiser Vanguard, slipped into position. The feint unfolded like clockwork. Keth raiders darted in, lasers grazing the outpost's habdomes, forcing the miners to scramble for evac shuttles. Lara's pickets fired warning bursts, herding the attackers back without lethal intent. Then the kill zone snapped shut. Hidden in the asteroid clutter, Keth corvettes unleashed a barrage of disruptor torpedoes, tuned to fry the non-lethal systems. Alarms wailed as the Vanguard shuddered, her EM emitters sparking out in cascades of blue fire. "Shields at 60%, engineering barked. Non-lethal grid offline, rerouting power." "They're exploiting it," Lara muttered. watching the Keth press the advantage, their formation tightening like a noose. Human ingenuity had built those systems to end fights without graves, but now they were dead weight. She keyed comms. All ships fall back to secondary line. Ezra, ground teams, secure those evac corridors. Civilians first. Down on the outpost's fractured surface, Ezra Imani crouched behind a scorched bulkhead, his squad fanned out in the choking dust of the mining tunnels. The air recyclers whined, laced with the acrid tang of plasma burns. His Marines, 8 souls he'd pulled from the last boarding debacle, huddled around him, visors reflecting the flash of distant explosions. Eyes on the shuttles, he ordered, voice steady over the suit net. Kale's directive, hold fire on retreating Keth unless they re-engage. We're clearing paths, not starting massacres. Private Lena Torres, her rifle slung low, shot him a sidelong glare through her HUD. Sir, they're bugging out anyway, why risk it? Because orders, Ezra replied, though doubt gnawed at him. Lara's restraint had saved lives before, kept the coalition from becoming the monsters they fought. But here, in the grit and recoil, it felt like painting targets on their backs. He waved the squad forward, mag boots clanging against the deck as they funneled miners toward the evac bays. Keth stragglers peeled away in their dropships, engines flaring against the black, and Ezra's finger hovered on the trigger. Hold for the ideals, for her. A civilian stumbled past, face pale under the helmet light, clutching a toolkit like a shield. They're gone, right? We clear? Almost, Ezra said, clapping the man's shoulder. Keep moving. His squad formed a human chain, lasers sweeping the corridors, buying time for the last shuttles to lift. One Keth craft lingered too long, rotors whining as it scanned the bays. Scavenging intel, maybe, or just testing. Ezra's scope locked on its exhaust ports. One shot, clean disable, but Kale's voice echoed in his ear from the brief, de-escalate, demonstrate mercy. He exhaled, lowering the weapon. The craft boosted away, untouched. Up in orbit, Lara watched the holotank with clenched fists. The feint had worked. Her fleet was committed, non-lethals crippled, and the Keth were withdrawing in good order. Too good. Sensors, full sweep, they're not done. Reyes nodded grimly. Second wave inbound, cloaked until now, vectoring straight for the refugee convoy. Unarmed haulers, packed with drift evacuees. Varick's calculus crystallized in her mind. The convoy was a lumbering beast, slow and defenseless, ferrying thousands from the inner colonies. Hit it, and the humans would hesitate, fire through their own. No, it was a dagger to the heart of her doctrine, forcing the choice. Let the Keth escape unscathed or risk the innocents. On the Keth command deck, Strategos Varick Thal observed the unfolding trap with the detachment of a mathematician solving an equation. His flagship, the Dominion's Pride, hung in the shadow of a gas giant, its bridge a vault of polished obsidian and glowing tactical webs. Subordinates bowed as he paced, his armored robes whispering against the deck. Second wave, engage, he commanded, voice like grinding stone. Target the haulers. The humans will shield them. Calculate their restraint at 98% probability. Press the gap. A junior officer hesitated, tendrils twitching. Strategos, if they break pattern, they won't. Varick's eyes narrowed, admiring the ingenuity of his own design. Human hesitation wasn't weakness, it was predictability, a flaw in their code. He'd studied their wars, their endless debates on ethics. Mercy was vulnerability, and history punished it. This strike would prove it, securing his position against the Dominion's doubters, who dismissed humans as insects. Execute. Lara's bridge erupted in urgency. The second wave materialized. Sleek Keth interceptors, fangs bared, diving toward the convoy's sluggish line. Shields up, she barked. Position Vanguard between them and the haulers. All batteries suppressive fire. Disable. Don't destroy. The ship groaned as thrusters fired, interposing her bulk. Keth beams lanced out, scoring the Vanguard's flanks, hull plates buckling under the onslaught. Lara gripped the armrests, feeling the deck tilt as inertial dampers strained. Damage report. Port side breached. Casualties in engineering, Reyes said. blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. "They're adapting, targeting our maneuver drives." She refused to yield. Firing through the convoy would scatter the haulers like chaff, dooming thousands. Instead, the Vanguard absorbed the hits, her point defense guns spitting countermeasures, buying the refugees seconds to scatter. A Keth interceptor grazed a hauler's flank, venting atmosphere in a silent plume, but Lara's repositioning held the line. The cost mounted. Sparks flew from consoles. Crew shouting over the din, but the convoy edged toward safety. In the depths of the Pride, Errol Tesh hunched over a jury-rigged console in the Coalition's auxiliary comms bay, their scarred tendrils interfacing with the captured Keth decryptor. The defector's new life hung by threads, Coalition asylum for intel, but every transmission risked exposure. Lara had trusted them with this post, a fragile bridge between enemies. Static crackled, then clarity, coded Keth bursts laced with mockery. Human flagship bleeds for their pets. Restraint? It's suicide. Laughter in the subtones, then urgency. Strategos, permission to press? They're exposed. Errol's core chilled. Varick's voice cut through, cold as vacuum. Denied. Let them savor the mercy. It blinds them further. They patched it to Lara's bridge, fingers trembling. Proof. The Keth saw her choices as cracks, not shields. Errol leaned back, the weight of defection pressing heavier. Both sides might discard them yet, but this chatter could shift the board. Ezra's squad pushed through the outpost's outer bays, the last civilians aboard, and shuttles lifting in a ragged formation. But the second wave's echoes reached them, orbital fire rattling the structure, dust sifting from the ceiling. "Incoming debris," he yelled, shoving a Marine clear as a bulkhead buckled. Chaos swallowed them. Keth stragglers, emboldened by the fleet's distraction, looped back for a strafing run. Ezra's team returned fire, but Restraint frayed. Lasers clipped a dropship's wing, sending it spiraling. It crashed nearby, venting troops who charged the bays. "Flank left," Ezra ordered, squad laying down cover. Torres dropped a Keth with a precise burst, but return fire caught them. Private Hale jerked, suit alarms blaring as rounds punched through. He slumped, lifeless. Then Corporal Voss, caught in the open, shredded by shrapnel from a grenade. Ezra dragged Voss's body behind cover, rage boiling. Two gone, for what? Holding fire on ghosts? He keyed his comm, voice raw. "Lara, this is Ezra. Lost Hale and Voss covering the evac. Your doctrine, Kale's directives. It's getting us killed for optics. They're walking away, laughing. We can't keep bleeding like this." The words hung, a fracture in the line. Lara heard them over the bridge din, her brother's doubt a knife twist. The Vanguard limped, Keth withdrawing as planned. Convoy safe, but Pyrrhic. She wanted to argue. Restraint built alliances, deterred escalation, but the losses stacked. Heavy as the debris. Hours later, as repair crews patched the flagship's wounds, Coalition High Command's transmission arrived, veiled ice in Admiral Voss's tone. "Commander Imani, your engagement preserved civilian assets, but permitted Keth tactical withdrawal. Unacceptable. Review rules of engagement. Deterrence demands results." Lara stared at the screen, the words blurring. Across the front, Keth propaganda flares lit up Coalition nets. Holograms of the Vanguard fleeing, captions scrolling in universal script. "Human cowardice exposed. Mercy invites conquest." Varick's signature, twisting her stand into surrender. She slumped in her quarters, the weight of it all pressing down. Political winds shifted, losses mounting like debts. Then the secure line chimed. High Command again, direct from the core worlds. Imani. "Authorization granted. One decisive strike. Escalate, restore deterrence, or..." The line breaks. The order burned. Mercy's cost laid bare. Hold the line or become the destroyer. The void whispered its answer, and Lara felt the fracture widen. The command deck of the UNS Vanguard hummed with the low thrum of life support systems, a sterile heartbeat against the endless black outside the viewports. Lara Imani stood at the central holotable, her fingers tracing the glowing contours of the Keth logistics node. a sprawling hub orbiting the gas giant Epsilon 7, its docking arms choked with freighters and supply shuttles. The order from Coalition High Command had come encrypted, private, slipped into her secure channel like a knife in the dark. Prepare a precision strike, skirt the threshold, minimize, but hit hard enough to matter. She exhaled slowly, the recycled air tasting metallic on her tongue. The fracture in her resolve widened with every briefing like this. Mercy wasn't just doctrine, it was the thin line between survival and becoming the monsters the Keth already painted them as. But the node was key. Cut it, and the Dominion's push into the outer rim stalled for months. Her brother Ezra's face flickered in her mind, unbidden, his last message from the forward base. "We're holding, sis. Tell me we're still the good guys." The door hissed open, and Dr. Kyle Nureyev entered, his ethicist's tablet clutched like a shield. He was a wiry man, mid-40s, with the perpetual furrow of someone who'd argued philosophy in the shadow of railguns. "Commander," he said, voice steady but edged, "we need to talk about this target." Lara didn't look up from the hollow. "High Command's call, Kale. The node's the artery. We sever it clean." He stepped closer, activating his own overlay. Red hazard icons bloomed over the hub's civilian sectors, Keth merchant vessels, non-combat haulers weaving through the traffic lanes. Clean? That hub's a populated nexus. Thousands of non-militaries cycling through. Orbital depots are isolated, undefended. We hit those. We cripple logistics without the blood on our hands. She met his gaze then, her dark eyes hardening. Kale had drafted half the Coalition's rules of engagement, the ones that kept rail slugs from pulverizing cities from orbit. But war wasn't a seminar. Orbital strikes alone won't do it. The node's shielded, redundant. We need the hub offline to break the chain. And if we miss? Or if they scatter the civvies into the fire line? Kale's voice rose a fraction, the caution cracking. This isn't precision. It's a gamble on the edge of our threshold. One stray shot, and we've rewritten the war. No more graduated response. We become them. Total war. No holds barred. Lara's jaw tightened. She wanted to believe him, to cling to the doctrine that had defined her career since the first skirmishes. Restraint as strength, proving humanity's edge wasn't in brutality but in control. But the Keth didn't play by those rules. They'd glassed 3 Coalition outposts already, calling it necessary calculus. Her fear gnawed deeper. What if holding back just invited the knife? Before she could respond, the comms officer cleared his throat. "Incoming from the defector, ma'am. Errol Tesh has schematics." "Patch it through," Lara said, waving off Kale for now. The hollow flickered, pulling in Errol's feed from the secure brig-turned liaison quarters. The Keth defector appeared, their iridescent skins scarred from old purges, 4-fingered hands gesturing over a data slate. Errol's eyes, too large, too watchful, darted as if expecting betrayal from the walls. "Commander Imani," Errol said, voice a clipped accent over the translator. "The node's layout. Core reactors here, shielded by bulkhead layers. Sabotage points marked. Explosive overloads will chain react the fuel bays." Lara leaned in, absorbing the details. Errol had turned 6 months back, after capture in a signals intercept op. Asylum was their prize, but trust was a fragile thing. Risks? Defenses? Errol hesitated, mandibles twitching. Penal squads. Dissidents, failed officers, kept on site as expendable labor. They man the lower decks, handle volatile cargo. If detonations trigger... They trailed off, the implication hanging. Combatants or victims? The Keth blurred those lines deliberately, turning their own into shields. Kale muttered under his breath. "See? Even their own treat lives as variables." Lara nodded to Errol. "Understood. This stays need to know." The feed cut and she turned back to the table, the schematics integrating seamlessly. Errol's intel was gold, but it muddied everything. Mercy for the enemy meant mercy for their pawns, or was it just another trap? Across the void in the shadowed war room of the KDS Vorath, Strategos Varekthal studied the same node from his end, a predator's smile curling his lip ridges. The humans were predictable. Their ethical chains a delight to exploit. He'd rerouted civilian traffic weeks ago, freighters laden with Keth families, merchant clans, threading the lanes like veins around the hub. A half-measure strike, he wagered. They'd hesitate, plot their precision, and give his reinforcements time to harden the defenses. Status? Varric barked to his aide, a hulking sub-officer. Traffic patterns locked. Any orbital barrage scatters the civvies into the blast radius. They pull back, we reinforce. Varric's claws tapped the console. He admired the humans' ingenuity, their adaptive tactics, the way they turned scrap into weapons. But their mercy? A flaw, mathematical idiocy. History punished the soft. His rival faction whispered that humans were beneath notice, but Varric saw potential. Break their restraint, force them to mirror the Dominion, and dominance was assured. Alert the penal overseers, arm the failsafes. Let the humans' compassion be their noose. Back on the Vanguard, the briefing room filled with the scrape of chairs as Lara's officers filed in. Ezra's face appeared on the split-screen link from the Marine barracks on the assault carrier trailing them. Her brother looked worn, stubble shadowing his jaw, but his eyes burned with that same fire she'd seen since he was a kid, idolizing her academy stories. "Sis," he said, voice cutting through the static, "my unit's geared for boarding. Let us insert. High risk, yeah, but we sabotage from inside. No need for orbital fireworks." Lara's chest tightened. Ezra volunteered like this too often, chasing her ideals while doubting them in his gut. His Marines were family to him, every loss a scar. "It's suicide, Ezra. The node's a fortress. Better than glassing the place." He leaned forward, the cam catching the tension in his shoulders. "We breach via the service vents Errol mapped. Plant charges, exfil before the boom. Your strike team in the field, not from afar." The room murmured agreement, camaraderie forged in fire, humans leaning on grit over gods. Kale shifted uncomfortably, but Lara saw the logic. Ezra's way honored the doctrine, proved restraint could win without annihilation. Her flaw stared back. Protecting him meant risking him, and every choice echoed her fear of turning destroyer. "Approved," she said finally. "Insertion in 12 hours. Godspeed." Ezra nodded, a ghost of a grin. "For the line we hold." The op launched under cover of ECM bursts, the assault shuttles slipping through the traffic haze like ghosts. Lara paced the command deck, eyes locked on the tactical feed. Ezra's squad, 12 Marines in mag boots and breather suits, latched onto the node's underbelly, cutting through the hull with plasma torches. Her fleet hung back, rail batteries primed for a clean orbital if it went south. "Insertion successful," Ezra's voice crackled over comms. "Moving to core, resistance light, penal crews scattering." Lara's fingers drummed the console. The holo showed Keth patrols converging, but slow. Errol's schematics held true. Then alarms blared, reinforcements vectoring in from the hub's arms, civilian freighters caught in the crossfire paths. Kale was at her elbow. "Call the strike now, orbital precision. End it before they lock the vents." "No." Lara's voice was steel. "Ezra's almost in. We abort the barrage. Give him time." "You're gambling lives," Kyle snapped, but she ignored him, patching to the gunnery. "Stand down ordnance, windows extended." The feed from Ezra's helmet cam filled her screen. Gritty first-person chaos. His squad breached the lower decks, mag rifles barking suppressed rounds into Keth guards. The air recyclers whined, sparks flying from breached panels. "Charges set," Ezra grunted, voice strained. "Penal squads, they're chaining in. Dominion's purging them to cover the breach." Lara's breath caught. The cam caught it. Ragged Keth figures, collared and manacled, herded into the fuel bays by overseers. Detonations rippled. Keth failsafes. Varric's bet paying off. Bodies crumpled, not in combat, but execution. The blasts sealing bulkheads against the intruders. "Exfil now," Lara ordered, but the close quarters turned brutal. Keth penal overseers, elite enforcers, swarmed the corridors, their energy lances carving through armor. Ezra's squad fought back to back, human ingenuity shining in improvised barricades from cargo crates, grenades turned into flashbangs to disorient the four-limbed foes. One Marine went down, lance through the chest plate, screaming as vacuum clawed in. Ezra fired point blank, his face a mask of grim focus, but doubt flickered in his eyes, visible even through the cam's grain. Another squadmate dragged the wounded, buying seconds with covering fire. Casualties mounted, 3 down, then 4. The fight a meat grinder of sparks and blood mist. "Nodes destabilizing," Lara reported, watching the power grid flicker. "Ezra, pull out." "Almost got it." His voice broke on a curse as he slapped the final charge. The cam shook, lance graze across his shoulder, suit sealing with a hiss. They retreated, hauling the wounded, but the Keth pressed, using their own dead as cover. The sabotage-triggered fuel bays erupted in controlled fury, the node's arms shearing off in silent fireballs. Ezra's shuttle docked amid debris, medics swarming the wounded. 6 Marines made it back. 6 didn't. Lara slumped against the console as the after-action reports scrolled. Success, but Pyrrhic, the human cost higher than any orbital would have been. Her abort had bought the win, but at what price? Ezra's face, pale and bandaged in the medbay feed, haunted her. He'd watched the penal squads die, their executions a mirror to the war's cruelty. Did restraint matter when the enemy turned mercy into massacre? Hours later, the leak hit. Grainy footage, hacked from a drifting Keth drone, spread across coalition nets. The penal squad's final moments, collared figures detonated like trash, the blast's glow illuminating their terror. Public outrage ignited vids flooding from core worlds. They kill their own. Answer extermination with extermination. Demands poured into high command, aimed at Lara. Abandon the doctrine, unleash the fleet, or watch the fracture become a chasm. Mercy's cost burned brighter, the void's whisper turning to a roar. Lara stared at the holoscreen in her quarters, aboard the UNS Vanguard, the grainy footage looping like a wound that wouldn't close. The penal squad's collars detonating in synchronized flashes. Bodies crumpling amid the debris of their own ship. Keth efficiency turned grotesque. The vids had spread like plasma fire, igniting protests from Luna to Epsilon Eridani. Her comms pinged relentlessly, admirals, politicians, grieving families. "End it, Commander. No more half measures." The restraint doctrine, her doctrine, felt like a fraying tether in the storm. She straightened her uniform, the weight of her pips suddenly heavier, and strode to the emergency council chamber. The Vanguard's conference room had been repurposed, its walls projecting a secure link to high command on Earth and the scattered fleet admirals. Lara took her seat at the head of the table, facing a gallery of stern faces. Admiral Reyes from Pacific Command, sharp-eyed and unyielding. Delegate Voss, a hardliner from the Mars enclaves, his jowls tight with fury. And others, their feeds flickering with the strain of light years. The session opened without preamble. Voss leaned forward, his voice a gravelly bark. "Commander Imani, the public's had enough. Those penal squads were a message. Keth don't negotiate with weakness. Your rules of engagement tied our hands while they glassed outposts. Authorized total war, full orbital strikes, no holds barred." Lara met his gaze, her pulse steady despite the knot in her gut. She'd built her career on graduated response. Warn, disable, de-escalate. It had saved civilian lives in the first skirmishes, proven humanity's edge wasn't brute force, but precision. But now, with Ezra's Marines bleeding on the front, doubt gnawed at her. "Total war plays into Varric's hands," she said, her words measured, projecting calm into the digital void. "He thrives on escalation. We hit back without limits. We become the monsters they paint us as. Restraint isn't mercy for mercy's sake. It's strategy. It fractures their alliances, sows doubt in their ranks. We've seen Keth defectors cite our ethics as why they turned." Rhea snorted, her feed glitching slightly. "Strategy? We've lost 3 colonies in 6 months. Your ethics cost us the Orion relay." Keth fainted. "We held fire to spare their evac shuttles, and they rammed us with suicide drones. Public screaming for blood, Lara. The coalition fractures if we don't act. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices, accusations flying like shrapnel. Lara gripped the table's edge, forcing herself to breathe through the rising tide. This was her fight, the one she'd sworn to win, not just for the fleet, but for Ezra, who still believed in her vision even as he dodged fire on alien hulls. Dr. Kyle Nureyev's feed activated next, his face pale against the sterile backdrop of the auxiliary medbay. The ethicist adjusted his glasses, voice steady but edged with urgency. Abandoning limits validates Strategos Varek's entire philosophy. He sees ethics as a flaw, a calculable weakness to exploit. If we go total war, we prove him right. Strength without restraint wins. Our doctrine has already forced Keth hesitations. Their internal purges stem from fear of our moral high ground, eroding their unity. Casualties hurt, but sliding into genocide. That ends us as a species, not just this war. Voss waved him off like smoke. Casualties? Try 20,000 last quarter alone. Relief convoys vaporized, Marines like your brother, Commander, picking up pieces. He pulled up a hollow chart, red spikes of death tolls climbing like a fever graph. Kale's theories are lab talk, reality's this. The numbers drowned him out, admirals nodding, the room's tension thickening. Kale's shoulders slumped, his eyes meeting Lara's in silent defeat. She wanted to argue, to pull the data showing how Restraint had bought them defectors and intel leaks. But the momentum crushed it. The vote loomed, hardliners pressing. Across the void in the shadowed spires of Keth Prime, Strategos Varek Thal reviewed the latest dispatches. His command nexus hummed with the low thrum of servers, aides scurrying like shadows. The human footage had been a gift, raw, unfiltered proof of coalition fractures. But Varek needed more to bind the fractious Dominion factions. Rival warlords whispered of overreach, of humans as a fleeting pest. He activated a secure channel to his propaganda wing. Circulate the package, the forged intercepts, human plans for planetary cleansing. Make it seamless, timestamps from their own nets, chatter about sterilizing Keth worlds post-surrender. Leak it to the skeptics first, then the High Council. His lead analyst, a wiry Keth with scarred mandibles, hesitated. Risky, Strategos, if traced. Varek's gaze silenced him. It won't be. Humans hesitate. We act. This unifies them behind the Armada. Preemptive strike on their core roots before they cleanse us. Mercy was error, he knew. Admiration flickered for human ingenuity. Their adaptive tactics, jury-rigged shields against Dominion plasma, but their ethics, a fatal pause. The forgeries would paint Restraint as ruse, a veil over extermination. Factions would rally, Armada fleets converging. Varek leaned back, the calculus aligning, dominance secured, his philosophy etched in stars. Back on the vanguard, Lara's shift blurred into alerts. Errol Tesh slipped into her ready room unannounced, the defectors' cloaked form materializing from the shadows. Their Keth physiology, elongated limbs, iridescent skin scarred by purge brands, still unsettled her, but Errol had earned trust, piece by fractured piece. Commander, Errol rasped, voice modulated through a translator implant. Intercepts from Dominion nets, fragments but clear. Varek's forging human comms, claims you're planning genocide, world burners after feigned surrender. It's spreading, your Restraint. He's twisting it into proof of deception, a ploy to lower guards before the strike. Lara's blood chilled. She pulled up her own intel feeds, cross-referencing. The fakes were slick, embedded in real chatter, timestamps mimicking Vanguard protocols. Bastard, she muttered, fists clenching. Errol's eyes, multifaceted and weary, held no triumph, only the hollow fear of one who'd fled purges. Why warn me? Your asylum's tied to our doctrine. Errol shifted, mandibles clicking softly, because if you break, they win, and I'm expendable to both. The words hung, a mirror to Lara's own doubts. Her Restraint had bought Errol's defection, but now it was weaponized. She nodded, mind racing. Expose the forgeries without tipping Varek, or let the Council's hardliners force her hand? Light years away, on the battered deck of the Marine assault ship Endurance, Ezra Imani wiped sweat from his brow, the acrid tang of recycled air thick in the briefing pod. His squad, 20 hardened souls, faces etched with frontier scars, lounged against bulkheads, eyes on him. The penal squad vids had hit them hardest. Whispers of mutiny had simmered since. Sergeant Hale, broad-shouldered with a prosthetic arm from a prior boarding gone wrong, spoke first. "Sir, next engagement, Keth cruiser in the belt. Non-lethal orders again. Stunners, breaching charges tuned low. After what they did to those penal bastards?" Ezra felt the weight of Lara's legacy, her voice in his head. Protect without becoming them. But Hale's Marines shifted, murmurs rising. "We're dying out here, Cap. My kid brother's on a convoy run. Pledge this. We ignore the holds. Full auto, no mercy. Protect our own." The pod tensed, hands inching toward sidearms, not drawn, but ready. Ezra's heart hammered, idealism cracking under the glare of loyalty. He idolized Lara, but these were his people, flesh and fear. "Stand down," he said, voice low, authoritative. "Mutiny gets us court-martialed or worse, Keth propaganda. We hold the line. That's how we win." Hale's jaw set, but he backed off, the squad fracturing in silence. Ezra exhaled, doubt coiling like smoke. How long before they broke him, or he broke her rules? Lara paced her quarters that night, the stars streaking past the viewport like accusations. The council vote hung, hardliners gaining. Errol's warning burned, Varick's armada loomed. Ezra's last message, terse squad status green, hid the strain she knew too well. She couldn't wait for approvals, not with the noose tightening. She activated a black channel bypassing logs, her fingers trembling on the console. "Ghost Team, this is Ironclad. Authorize Op Shadowfall. Infiltrate Varick's forward command on Keth Outpost Zeta 9. Assassinate the Strategos. Silent, deniable. No traces back." The response crackled. "Confirmed, ma'am. Breaching transparency protocols. Your call." It was a fracture in her soul, the doctrine's core. No secrets, no shadows. But Varick's death could end it, save Ezra. Prove Restraint's edge with one calculated cut. She killed the link, nausea rising. Mercy had costs. This was hers. The op launched under cover of a debris field. Ghost Team. 6 elite infiltrators. Human ingenuity in black void suits. Slipping through Keth patrols like ghosts. Their shuttle, cloaked in scavenged stealth tech, docked undetected on Zeta 9's hull. Inside, corridors pulsed with Dominion red light, air humming with security drones. Lead Operative Jax whispered over comms. Breaching command deck. Varick's signature confirmed. Central nexus. They moved with lethal grace. Stunners dropping guards. Blades silencing alarms. Human tactics shown. EMP bursts tailored to Keth Frex, disabling without blasts. But as they rounded the final bulkhead, a trap sprung. Bulk doors slamming, plasma vents igniting. "Ambush!" Jax barked. The team fired, but Keth reinforcements swarmed, coordinated like a hive. A leak had to be. Varick's voice boomed over speakers, calm as void. Human subtlety, admirable but predictable. He was there, evacuating via hidden shaft, his form vanishing as the Nexus erupted in suppressing fire. Ghost Team fought, but odds crushed them. Jax's last transmission, pulling out, 2 down. Lara watched from the vanguard, feeds cutting to static. Failure sank in, a cold void. Retaliation came swift. Hours later, alerts screamed, "Human relief convoy in Sector 7, en route to Ezra's position, hit by suborned Keth frigates. No warning, no quarter, plasma lances gutting transports, escape pods hunted like vermin. Casualties, 900, medics and engineers mostly. Ezra's endurance was closest, pulling survivors amid the wreckage. He boarded the lead Hulk, mag boots clanging on twisted metal, the stench of charred flesh hitting like a wave. Bodies floated, frozen screams etched on faces. Civilians he'd promised safe passage. His Marines worked triage, but Ezra froze amid the debris, a child's toy drifting past, half melted. Hale clapped his shoulder, voice rough. "Keth works, sir," Varick's signature. Ezra's vision blurred. The idealism Lara instilled shattering. He'd held the line. But this? Squadmates died for her rules. Now this blood on the stars. He punched a bulkhead, glove denting alloy. Lara stared at the holographic display in the dim glow of the command bridge. The starfield outside the viewport, a cold smear of indifference. Her emergency authority had come down from Coalition High Command like a guillotine blade, unrestricted, irrevocable, born of desperation after the Keth had glassed 3 more fringe colonies in a single cycle. The plan materialized before her, a cascade of kinetic strikes on the Keth homeworld's power grid, orbital habitats, and water reclamation nodes. It would cripple their industrial heart, starve their fleets of munitions, buy humanity breathing room. But the projections flickered with red overlays, civilian densities, projected casualties in the tens of millions. Entire arcologies would crumple under the impacts, lives snuffed out in fire and vacuum. Admiral Reyes, her second-in-command, stood rigid beside her, his voice steady but edged with the fatigue of too many such briefings. "Commander, it's surgical in scope compared to what they're doing to us. We hit the nodes, they fold. No more invasions, no more purges." Lara's fingers tightened on the armrest of her chair. She'd built her doctrine on this precipice. Graduated response, always one step short of the abyss. But the Keth read every pause as weakness, every spared life as an invitation to press harder. Her brother Ezra's last transmission echoed in her mind. His squad pinned down on a derelict station, holding for evac under her rules of engagement. How many more would die if she blinked? "Run the sims again," she said, her voice low. Not quite a command. The bridge crew exchanged glances, but no one argued. Reyes nodded to the TAC officer, and the holo spun up fresh data. Same outcome, same rivers of red. In the adjacent ready room, Dr. Kyle Nureyev paced like a caged theorist, his civilian tunic rumpled from hours of debate. Lara had summoned him here to keep the conversation contained, away from the enlisted ranks. He stopped when she entered, his eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses, the ethicist's calm cracking at the edges. "You can't sign off on this, Lara," he said, not waiting for pleasantries. "It's not just the deaths, it's the precedent. We drafted those laws to draw a line, to show the galaxy we're better than them. Cross it, and history lists us as the war's true casualty. Moral collapse doesn't end with victory. It poisons everything after." She leaned against the bulkhead, arms crossed, feeling the cool metal ground her. Kale had been her conscience since the first skirmishes, his arguments a bulwark against the slide into Varric Thal's kind of calculus, lives as variables, mercy as error. But now? And if we don't, Kale? Varric's laughing at us. He exploits every restraint, turns it into a noose. Ezra's out there because of it. Kale's jaw tightened, a rare flash of anger breaking his composure. Then find another way, not this. Resigning won't stop you, but it might make you think twice. He pulled a data chit from his pocket, sliding it across the table, his formal withdrawal from advisory duties. "I won't endorse annihilation to save face." Lara picked it up, the weight of it negligible, the implications crushing. She nodded once. Watching him go, the door hissing shut behind him. Alone, she exhaled, the bridge's hum filtering through like distant artillery. The alert chime pulled her back, priority incoming from Intel. Errol Tesh waited in the secure annex, their Keth physiology making them a stark silhouette against the screens. Elongated limbs, iridescent skin scarred from Dominion purges, eyes like polished obsidian. Errol had defected months ago, trading signals expertise for a shot at asylum, but trust was a fragile commodity in this war. "Commander," Errol said, voice modulated through a translator implant, carrying the faint hiss of their native tongue. "I've decrypted a shadow channel. Varric's mobile command. It's not anchored to the homeworld. Coordinates here." They tapped the console. A pinpoint blooming in the hollow, a carrier drifting in the outer belts, masked as a supply convoy. Lara leaned in, skepticism warring with hope. Varric, the architect of their nightmares, Campaigns that baited humanitarian pauses, then struck the rescuers. Why now? What's the angle? Errol's mandibles clicked softly, a nervous tick. He anticipates the doomsday play, expects you to shatter your own limits, prove his point. But a raid, surgical, on his flagship. Capture him, broadcast it, show the Dominion their strategist broken without the bloodbath. Proof that restraint wins wars, not just loses them. The idea lodged in Lara's chest like shrapnel, high risk, everything her doctrine preached, but against Varric. It could decapitate the Keth strategy overnight, force a rethink, or it could be a trap. Errol's loyalty, a Dominion ploy to gut her fleet. She studied them, searching for the lie in those unblinking eyes. Errol had lost kin to Varric's purges. Vengeance burned there, real as the scars. Prep the codes, we'll verify. Word spread through the task force like a rumor of reprieve. By the time Lara reached the Marine briefing deck, Ezra was already there, his armor scuffed from the last op, face gaunt under the helmet lights. He'd punched a bulkhead after that station fight. Lara had seen the dent in the after-action report, knew the fracture it represented. His squad had lost 3 holding a civilian evac under her ROEs, Keth drones swarming because they couldn't preemptively glass the threat. He straightened when she entered, but his eyes, dark like hers, but harder now, betrayed the storm. "Sis, Commander, heard about the raid. Assign me to it." The room quieted, his Marines glancing between them. Lara felt the weight of their stares, the unspoken, her brother, the idealist she'd raised on stories of ethical fire, now at his breaking point. "Ezra, it's point blank into Varric's den. Your team's battered." "Exactly." He stepped forward, voice raw, not pleading but demanding. "We've bled for your rules, held lines we shouldn't, lost people to restraint. If this works, it salvages that. Meaning from the mess. Don't bench me now." She saw the doubt in him, the idolization curdling into something sharper. He'd always chased her shadow, but war scarred that blind faith. Assigning him meant risking the last family she had left, proving her doctrine or burying it with him. The Marines shifted, loyal to him, waiting. Lara nodded, throat tight. "Your lead on the boarding team, but you follow the op plan, no heroics." Ezra's relief was fleeting, masked by a salute. As he turned to his squad, Lara felt the compromise settle like ash, choosing the raid over doomsday, but hedging her bets. In her quarters later, she unsealed the terminal, drafting the order, total war authorization, to execute if the mission failed. Her hand hovered over the signature field, the words blurring. This was the crack in her beliefs, the fear of becoming the destroyer she'd sworn against. She signed it, sealed it, and locked it away. Mercy as strength, or just another vulnerability Varric would exploit? The raid launched under cloak, the assault shuttle slipping through the belt's debris like a ghost. Captured Keth codes fed into the nav array, spoofing their approach as a routine resupply drone. Lara monitored from the command ship, 2 light minutes out, her bridge a tomb of held breaths. Errol's intel held, the carrier loomed in the feeds, a behemoth of angular hulls and pulsing energy webs, Varric's contempt for human boldness evident in the lax outer patrols. He thought them too timid for this, too bound by ethics to strike the head. Ezra's team breached via a maintenance hatch, mag boots clamping silently as they cycled air. The carrier's corridors were a labyrinth of dim blue lighting and humming conduits, Keth script flickering on panels. Ezra led point, rifle low, his HUD painting threats in ghost overlays. His Marines fanned out, 8 souls down from 12 after the station, moving with the grim efficiency of survivors. "Codes cycling," he whispered over comms. "Security's blind. Push to command deck." They ghosted through a junction, bypassing a sentry drone with a pulse from Errol's jammer. The air hummed with tension, the faint vibration of the carrier's engines, a reminder of the trap potential. Ezra's mind raced, Lara's faith in this, in him, a weight heavier than his armor. One wrong turn, and her sealed order would unleash hell on the Keth worlds. No, this had to work clean. Deeper in, the corridors widened, access hatches sealing behind them with soft hisses. Errol's voice crackled in their ears from the command ship relay. "Varek's signature in the core bridge. You're close, 50 meters. Ezra signaled halt at a final bulkhead, his squad stacking up. The plan: breach, secure Varek, extract with broadcast gear to beam proof of capture galaxy-wide. Mercy in action. Take the head, spare the body politic." He initiated the override, the hatch grinding open on muffled hydraulics. Alarms wailed the instant they crossed the threshold. Red strobes bathed the command deck, Keth warriors materializing from concealed alcoves. Varek's ambush sprung like a predator's jaws. He'd anticipated this partially, not the full raid, but enough to rig the game. Blaster fire scorched the air, Ezra's team returning shots in a brutal ballet, dropping 2 Keth before the deck shuddered. "Section purge!" a Marine yelled as blast doors slammed down, isolating them in a kill box. The deck plating buckled, emergency vents hissing gas. Self-destruct sequence, Varek's failsafe to deny them the prize. Ezra dove behind a console, slugs pinging off his cover. His squad was pinned, 2 down already, medgel foaming from wounds. Varek's voice boomed over the intercom, calm as a lecturer. "Human boldness, predictable in its desperation. You hesitate, I prepare. Detonate and join your dead." Ezra's vision blurred, the idealism Lara instilled shattering further. He'd held the line before, but this? Squadmates dying for her rules, now trapped in a coffin Varek had built. Panic clawed up, irrational. Punch the bulkhead? No time. He scanned the schematics on his HUD. The rigged section encompassed the bridge, charges primed to vaporize everything. Varek was there, in the elevated tack throne, directing the slaughter with that cold admiration in his eyes. The only way: detonate from within. Trigger the purge manually, collapse the deck on Varek, take him out before Lara's total war order fired. But it meant his team, him, all of them. Sacrifice for meaning or die holding empty ideals. Ezra's hand trembled on the override panel, the cost crystallizing in the screams of his Marines. Ezra's fingers hovered over the override panel, the red glow pulsing like a heartbeat in the dim engineering bay. Alarms wailed through the carrier's corridors, a symphony of failing systems and distant explosions. His Marines, Sergeant Reyes with her bandaged arm slung across her chest, Sergeant Kim clutching his rifle like a lifeline, watched him, faces slick with sweat and grime. They knew. The breach in the hull had sealed their fate hours ago, but this was the end they could choose. "Commander," Reyes rasped, her voice cutting through the din. "We can still evac, 1 shuttle, maybe." "No." Ezra's word hung heavy. Final. He met her eyes, saw the flicker of betrayal there, the raw plea for survival. His squad had followed him through hell, boarding this behemoth under fire, fighting Keth security in 0G choke points, losing 2 to plasma vents just to reach this core. They trusted his calls because he was Lara's brother, because he preached the same restraint she did: strike surgical, spare the innocents. But Varek was here, the architect of a dozen massacres, and outside, Lara's fleet teetered on the brink of unleashing hell without limits. The panel's interface blinked. Purge sequence confirm. It would flood the command decks with coolant plasma, crumple the bridge like foil, take Varek and his war machine with it. The carrier would die, denying the Dominion its nerve center. But the blast radius? It swallowed engineering, the bays, everything below the midsection. No running, no mercy for them. Ezra's hand shook, not from fear, but from the weight of it. Ezra idolized Lara, her doctrine a shield against the void. But doubt had gnawed at him since the first raid, when Restraint let a Keth frigate slip away, costing lives later. Was this sacrifice proof of her ideals, or just another way to die holding empty hands? "Tell my sister," he said, voice steadying, "that I got it right this time." Reyes nodded once, tears carving tracks in the soot on her face. Kim muttered a curse but gripped his shoulder instead of arguing. Ezra slammed the confirm. The panel lit up, claxons shifting to a deeper, final tone, hatches sealed with hydraulic hisses, and the deck trembled as plasma conduits ruptured. Heat bloomed, acrid and searing, turning the air to fire. Ezra closed his eyes, picturing Lara's face, stern, unyielding. Then the screams started, his team's and his own, as the world collapsed inward. Aral Tesh crouched in the shadows of a shattered comms node, the carrier's spine groaning around them. The defector's claws dug into the bulkhead, non-standard implants humming as they interfaced with the fractured net. Chaos reigned, Varric's overrides failing, Keth crew panicking in the lower decks. Aral had slipped away during the boarding, using stolen codes to burrow into the system's underbelly. Not for glory, for survival. The Dominion would hunt them forever if this failed. But asylum with the humans? That meant proving worth, turning the tide without becoming another casualty. The self-destruct signal rippled through the net like a shockwave, Varric's command feeds fracturing. Aral seized it, fingers flying over holographic keys. Now, they whispered, patching into auxiliary cams, grainy feeds of human marines in the evacuation bays, hauling Keth technicians and medics toward escape pods. Not soldiers, non-combatants wide-eyed and unresisting, their chitinous forms bundled in makeshift harnesses. One marine, a young woman with a bloodied helmet, guided a trembling Keith Elder by the arm, shouting over the alarms, "Move! We've got you!" Aral broadcasted all, hijacking the Dominion's open channels. Real-time footage flooded warlord relays, coalition monitors, even civilian nets back on core worlds. No narration, just the raw feed. Humans risking their lives amid the dying ship, pulling the enemy from the flames. Varric's voice cut in once, distorted and furious. "Traitors! Cut that feed!" Before static swallowed him. Aral's heart raced. This was mercy weaponized. A crack in the Dominion's armor. But as the carrier buckled, they wondered if the humans would see it the same, or if Aral was just another tool to discard. Lara Imani stood on the bridge of the UNS Reliant, the void beyond the viewport, a storm of debris and laser fire. Her fleet held position, weapons hot, the sealed order burning in her console. Total war. No holds barred. Glass the Keth orbitals. End it. Her hands clenched the armrests, knuckles white. Ezra was inside that carrier, her brother, the kid who'd followed her into the stars, doubting her every step but fighting anyway. Reports trickled in. Boarding success, but no extraction. Then the signal from Aral, the hijacked feed blooming across her screens. She watched, breath catching, as Marines dragged Keth civilians from the inferno. Not protocol, not under total war. Restraint, even now. Then the carrier's core lit up, a bloom of plasma erupting from its belly. Structural collapse. Varric's icon flatlined on tactical, confirmed dead, the bastard's empire unraveling without him. "Admiral," her XO said, voice tight, "the order, rescind it." Lara's words came out rough, scraped raw. She keyed the all-fleet channel. "Stand down, all units, graduated response only. We're pulling back to de-escalation protocols." The bridge crew exchanged glances, relief mingling with confusion, but no one questioned. Ezra's raid had bought this, his ingenuity, his choice. She'd nearly thrown it all away, become the monster the old wars birthed. His sacrifice chained her to the limits she'd sworn by, proving they weren't weakness, just a heavier burden. She turned from the viewport, eyes stinging, as the fleet's fire slackened. The cost? Ezra, always Ezra. Weeks blurred into armistice talks, the carrier's wreckage still cooling in orbit. Kyle Nureyev stepped off the shuttle onto the Reliance deck, his ethicist's robes rumpled from hasty travel. The war had scarred him. Debates in bunkers, arguments with brass who called his de-escalation theories suicide. But the raid's footage? That was vindication, raw and bloody. Lara met him in the briefing room, hollows of the broadcast flickering between them. "You saw it," she said, not a question. Kale nodded, sliding into a chair. Ezra's choice, triggering the purge, saving those Keth. It's not just tactics, it's doctrine. His voice carried that cerebral edge, but fatigue cracked it. He'd pushed for non-lethal options when others screamed for nukes, fearing his ideas would bury him in body counts. Now they might save the peace. We frame it around Restraint's price. Costly, yes, but it fractures their unity. Varric's death shows mercy as strategy, exploiting their misread of it. Lara leaned forward, tracing the hollow of her brother's last position. Codify it. Make Ezra the proof. Human strength in the hard limits. Kael's eyes met hers, a shared understanding passing. No easy wins, just principles paid in blood. They worked through the night, drafting clauses for the post-war accords. Ethical warfare not as idealism, but as the edge that outlasted brutality. The Keth response fractured along old lines. Some warlords, those who'd lost faith in Varric's endless conquest, pulled back, signaling localized ceasefires from fringe systems. Convoys docked under white flags, trading intel for guarantees. But others hardened, purging dissenters and vowing total retaliation. Peace came in patches, costly for the coalition. Strained resources, political knives from hawks decrying half measures. Lara navigated the fallout. Her fleet stretched thin, every concession a reminder of what Ezra's raid had bought, and what it hadn't. The memorial hung in the Reliance hangar, a stark affair under flickering lights, rows of names etched in alloy. Ezra's at the top, flanked by his Marines, Keth defectors, even a few rescued non-combatants who'd died in the evac. Lara stood at the podium, uniform crisp, but eyes hollowed by grief. Admirals and diplomats filled the benches, Errol Tesh in the back row, hooded and silent, their asylum papers fresh but fragile. Captain Ezra Imani's raid, Lara began, voice steady, marked the tactical turning point. He and his team infiltrated the heart of the enemy, denying them their command. Pauses rippled through the crowd, but deeper, it was misinterpretation, ours and theirs. They saw our restraint as weakness. We saw their aggression as inevitability. Ezra proved otherwise, at the cost of everything. She listed the fallen, each name a weight, then stepped down. No speeches on heroism, just the brutal clarity. War's end carved from misunderstanding, paid in lives. Errol approached later, murmuring thanks. Lara nodded, seeing in them the hope Ezra died for, flawed, uncertain, but real. In the final debrief, Lara's ready room felt smaller, walls closing with the war's echoes. Kael sat across, datapads stacked high, while her staff filtered in. The accords were signed, partial but binding. One last thing, Lara said, projecting the raid's autopsy report. Varric's carrier, Ezra's squad, all reduced to cause and effect. Kael tilted his head. The epitaph? Lara keyed it in. They interpreted restraint as weakness. Autopsy listed cause, misinterpretation. Official record, and for every first contact ahead, warned them. We declare our limits up front. The price, we'll pay it same as always. The room fell quiet, the words settling like ash. Outside, the fleet prepped for patrol, humanity's next doctrine taking shape. Not hidden mercy, but declared, defiant lines in the stars, limits drawn bold, the cost etched in every soul who'd held them. Lara stared at the stars, Ezra's absence a scar that pulled tight, but she stood straighter. Misinterpretation ended here, or at least they'd fight smarter for it.